Hello, my fellow nerds, and welcome to the Nerd Empire. I hope you all are having a fantastic day today, and I hope you all will enjoy today's reaction video. With that being said, let's get right into it, shall we? Alright, the evolution of Resident Evil monsters. This is by the channel called Leon Explains.
Resident Evil's monsters didn't just get scarier over 3 decades. They evolved through 7 distinct biological revolutions that fundamentally changed what bioweapons could do. Every major game introduced a new paradigm, from viral reanimation to parasitic mind control, from adaptive mutation to fungal consciousness networks that literally store human soul. That's why today, I'm breaking down every major evolutionary leap in Resident Evil's monster lineage, and how each one changed the rules of bioweapon development, starting with the virus that created the zombie apocalypse, the T-virus. The T-virus wasn't just Umbrella's
The T-virus, the virus that has started it all.
first bioweapon, and for something that defined survival horror for 30 years, we've never gotten a coherent explanation for how one retrovirus could mutate every living thing on Earth into completely different monsters. Umbrella researchers discovered the progenitor virus on December 4th, 1966, inside the Ndapaya Kingdom caverns in West Africa. The virus came from a rare flower called the Stairway to the Sun. Tribal legends described kings who ate the flowers and gained superhuman strength and near immortality. Oswell Spencer, Edward Ashford, and James Marcus founded Umbrella Corporation as a pharmaceutical front to weaponize it. Marcus spent 11 years combining progenitor with leech DNA, finally creating the Tyrant virus in September 1977. The goal was simple: rewrite human DNA.
I hope to game again with people around next week. Haven't played shit on a controller or mouse in over a year. Umbrella Corporation, T-virus bagged the world.
At the cellular level to create controllable biological weapons. But then you look at what
Well, the thing that made them was metamycete, not any of the viruses.
T-virus actually does. Humans become shambling zombies with destroyed higher brain function but maintained motor control. Dogs become Cerberus units with enhanced aggression and necrotic flesh but retained speed. Reptiles spliced with human DNA become hunters with Kevlar equivalent skin. Plants become ambulatory carnivores. The same virus produces functional mutations across every biological kingdom. Here's the problem with that. Real retroviruses are species-specific. HIV infects humans. Feline leukemia virus infects cats. They can't jump between mammals and reptiles and plants and insects while producing coherent, weaponizable results in every single case. The T-virus doesn't just infect different species. It generates custom mutations perfectly suited to each organism's existing genome. Umbrella's research files describe this as directed evolution. But no virus could encode that level of genetic programming. The Tyrant T002 proves the contradiction. Every human infected with T-virus loses higher brain function within hours and becomes a mindless zombie. Every single human. But the T002 Tyrant retained near-human intelligence, could follow complex commands, and had enough tactical reasoning to operate the Spencer Mansion's security systems. Umbrella claimed this required a genetic compatibility rate of 1 in 10 million, but never explained what genes made someone compatible or how the virus preserved intelligence in that one case while destroying it in literally everyone else. Lisa Trevor survived even worse. Kidnapped in November 1967, she was injected with progenitor type B, multiple T-virus strains, and the NE alpha parasite over 30 years. Each virus had a 100% fatality rate in other subjects. She survived all of them, absorbed the NE-alpha parasite completely, and her body spontaneously generated the G-virus. The research files describe her as biologically impossible, but never explain the mechanism that let her integrate incompatible viral strains without dying. That impossibility defined bioweapon development for the next 25 years. Every virus in the franchise descends from progenitor. Every subsequent outbreak traces back to the Arklay Laboratory and Spencer Mansion, and every researcher who came after Marcus spent decades trying to solve the same problem he never could. How do you create a bioweapon that keeps the host intelligent instead of turning them into a rotting corpse? But if the T-virus created uncontrollable monsters, William Birkin found something inside Lisa Trevor that could evolve forever. And unlike the T-virus, it had no theoretical limit to how far it could mutate, the G-virus. William Birkin didn't just improve the T-virus, and after spending 10 years analyzing Lisa Trevor's impossible biology, he created something that could mutate infinitely without any theoretical limit to how far it could evolve.
You gotta wonder how much Birkin's monster would have evolved if we never took him down. Like, could have it just kept evolving infinitely without stop if we didn't destroy it?
Discovered the Golgotha virus inside Lisa Trevor's body in 1988. She'd absorbed the NE alpha parasite completely instead of dying like every other test subject. Her cells had spontaneously generated an entirely new virus that granted adaptive, continuous self-evolution. Umbrella moved Birkin to the Nest facility beneath Raccoon City to develop it. The G-virus worked through G-cells that fused with host tissue and continuously rewrote DNA. Every injury triggered accelerated mutation. The host would generate new body parts, new organs, new biological structures with zero ceiling on complexity. Birkin spent 10 years perfecting it. On September 22, 1998, the USS Alpha team led by Hunk raided Nest to steal his research. Birkin was shot, injected himself with G-virus, and triggered the Raccoon City outbreak that killed over 100,000 people. But then you see what happened to Birkin himself. He didn't just mutate once, he mutated 5 times in under 12 hours, and each transformation was more complex than the last. G1 form had asymmetrical mutations and a giant eyeball on his shoulder, but retained some memory of his daughter Sherry. G2 form sucked his original head into his chest cavity and grew an entirely new brain. G3 became quadrupedal with 4 arms. G4 could overpower 4 tyrants simultaneously. G5 turned into an uncontrollable blob of flesh that vomited up partially digested zombies. The research files state there were no factors indicating the G creature's evolution was coming to a halt. That's not hyperbole. That's the actual assessment from Umbrella scientists. The virus had no built-in limitations. It would just keep mutating forever, consuming more biomass, generating...
I wonder if it kept mutating, if it would have eventually grown or mutated so large that it probably would have encompassed the entirety of Raccoon City. His head sucked into his body and then immediately traveled down to suck his own dick. Because why the hell not?
More complex structures with absolutely nothing to stop it. Simultaneously, Umbrella Europe solved the intelligence problem through a completely different method. The Nemesis T-02 was a T-103 tyrant with the NE alpha parasite implanted in its brain. The parasite replaced the host.
Nemesis is actually my favorite antagonist in all Resident Evils. I love Nemesis, and I still stand by today that Nemesis is like probably the top 3 most powerful antagonists in the Resident Evil franchise.
Hosts destroyed neural tissue and grew into an enlarged brain structure. The result could speak target names, use rocket launchers, follow complex tactical commands, and infect other organisms with parasite offspring. It wore a bulletproof coat that doubled as a physical restraint because even Umbrella knew it was too dangerous to deploy without failsafes. Here's what breaks the established rules. The G-virus generates increasingly complex mutations with no energy source. Real biological processes require proportional energy input. Birkin's mass increased by approximately 400% between G1 and G5 with zero external fuel. His body was creating tissue, organs, skeletal structures, and functional nervous systems from nothing. The laws of thermodynamics don't allow that. And Nemesis retained human-level intelligence through a parasitic organism that consumed and replaced the host's original brain. A genetically engineered parasite produced cognition, sophisticated enough for weapon proficiency, target prioritization, and mission persistence across multiple encounters. No biological explanation is provided for how parasite neurons could replicate human...
Question: where does the energy to grow new limbs come from? I mean, a few zombies can't be enough to make a laboratory-sized monster. Basically, it defies the laws of thermodynamics. It defies the laws of reality. It just keeps growing, creating things out of nothing, which is physically impossible.
Human reasoning. The Raccoon City incident proved that self-evolving bioweapons couldn't be controlled. Birkin exceeded every parameter Umbrella designed. The city was sterilized with an experimental thermobaric missile on October 1st, 1998.
Well, in the original Resident Evil 3, the entire city was destroyed. I mean, obliterated off the map. There was absolutely no, it was a barren wasteland. So, but in the remake of Resident Evil 3, it was retconned to where the city still exists. So, if the remake of Resident Evil 3 didn't retcon it, then I don't know what they would have done with Resident Evil Requiem, because Raccoon City just does not exist.
But if Birkin couldn't control...
I always thought it just got it from eating people like them. It would be similar to single-cell organisms duplicating itself, yeah.
His mutations, Alexia Ashford had already solved that problem 15 years earlier. She found a way to keep the intelligence, keep the power, and mutate at will instead of being consumed by the virus. T. Veronica. T. Veronica wasn't just another virus variant, and after Alexia Ashford injected herself at age 12 and spent 15 years in cryogenic sleep, she woke up with something no bioweapon had ever achieved: complete control over her mutations. Alexia created T. Veronica in the early 1980s at Umbrella's Antarctic base. She was a child prodigy, the result of Project Code. Veronica, where her father Alexander cloned their ancestor Veronica Ashford's DNA to restore the family's declining reputation. Alexia combined the progenitor virus with an ancient retrovirus extracted from a queen ant's genome and added plant genes to fill sequencing gaps. The breakthrough was the ant colony model. Queen ants release chemical properties that make worker ants subservient. Alexia engineered the virus to create the same hierarchy in infected hosts. A successful T. Veronica host becomes the queen, controlling all lower-ranking infected like soldiers in an insect army. The catch was timing. Without preparation, T. Veronica overwhelmed the brain instantly and destroyed all cognitive function. Alexia discovered the solution through mathematical modeling. If viral integration happened slowly enough, the host's neural tissue could adapt gradually instead of being consumed. She injected herself in February 1983 and entered cryogenic stasis. 15 years later, in late 1998, she awakened. The virus within her body had mutated into a distinct substrain researchers called T. Alexia. She retained complete human intelligence, could shift between 3 controlled mutation forms, commanded subordinate infected through chemical signals, and her blood was literally flammable. But then you examine what happened to every other T. Veronica test subject. Alexander Ashford was the first human trial. Alexia and her twin brother Alfred used him as revenge after discovering they were clones. No incubation, no preparation, just immediate injection. His brain deteriorated within hours. He grew insect appendages from his spinal cord, generated a naturally incurable poison, and spent 15 years imprisoned beneath the Antarctic base as a mindless creature called Nosferatu. Steve Burnside was infected with the T. Alexia strain during the Code Veronica incident in December 1998. He mutated into a massive creature with green skin and overgrown spine, briefly retained enough independent thought to resist attacking Claire Redfield, then died. The research files claim cryogenic stasis allowed gradual viral neural symbiosis over 15 years. That sounds scientific until you realize cryogenic stasis halts all biological processes. Freezing tissue prevents cellular activity entirely. A virus cannot integrate with neural tissue at any speed if cellular metabolism is stopped. The explanation requires the virus to somehow adapt, while biological time is frozen. And T. Veronica incorporated genes from 3 separate biological kingdoms. Queen ant genes for hierarchical control.
Harry Partridge worked with a group of other creators to make a show that was lovingly inspired by Resident Evil and its hilarious Ghost Bleed.
Plant genes for structural stability, and progenitor viral RNA for the mutation framework. Cross-kingdom gene expression is extraordinarily difficult, even in modern genetic engineering. The idea that a 12-year-old in the 1980s could create functional genetic programs using ant, plant, and viral DNA that produces flammable blood and insect colony telepathy is beyond theoretical possibility. Alexia's success proved controlled mutation was achievable. Every bioweapons researcher after Code, Veronica tried to replicate her results. Wesker recovered Steve Burnside's body and extracted the T. Alexia strain. That sample would later be combined with G-virus material to create the C-virus, the most versatile bioweapon in franchise history. T. Veronica's genes influenced bioweapon development for the next 15 years, but T. Veronica still required remaking the host at the cellular level. Beneath a Spanish castle, something far older had been controlling humans for centuries without changing their biology at all. And unlike every virus before it, the hosts stayed alive, stayed intelligent, and stayed loyal. Las Plagas. Las Plagas didn't use a virus at all, and after researchers unsealed Spanish mountain caves in the early 2000s,
Yes, Las Plagas, Resident Evil 4.
they discovered ancient parasitic arthropods that could turn an entire village into obedient soldiers without destroying a single brain cell. Las Plagas are parasitic organisms endemic to a remote Spanish region, possibly dating back to the Bronze Age around 2200 BC. Desiccated plaga remains were also found in Endopaya Kingdom ruins in West Africa, suggesting intercontinental origins that predate recorded history. Count Gregorio Salazar led a crusade against ancient ganados centuries ago and sealed surviving plagas in caves beneath his fortress. Osmond Sadler, descendant of the original banished cultists, manipulated the 8th Castellan Ramon Salazar into...
See, when they remade Resident Evil 4, I was hoping they would keep this look. I don't like the new look they went with for Ramon Salazar in the remake of Resident Evil 4.
Breaking the seal. The plagas themselves had died, but microscopic spores preserved in amber deposits remained viable. Miners inhaled them, and new parasites grew inside their bodies. The revolutionary capability was complete behavioral control without physical mutation. Hosts remained alive, conscious, and physically intact. The parasite attached to the spinal cord and exerted neurochemical influence over behavior. Infected villagers retained language, weapon proficiency, and tactical coordination. They could follow complex group commands, set ambushes, and operate heavy machinery, but they had zero free will. Every action was dictated by the parasitic hierarchy. But then you examine the biological mechanism. Real parasites like Toxoplasma gondii can alter host behavior, but only subtly. They make rats less afraid of cats by affecting specific neural pathways. They cannot create obedient soldiers who coordinate tactical assaults, use firearms, and follow mission parameters while maintaining full speech capability. The neurochemical influence required to override every aspect of human volition, while preserving every cognitive skill, has no biological parallel. The plagas operated through a 3-tier hierarchy. Subordinate species stripped free will entirely but preserved all motor and language functions. Dominant species, possessed only by Osman Sadler, allowed the host to retain full intelligence and remotely control all subordinate infected hosts through ultrasonic communication. Superior species, introduced in the RE4 remake, was an engineered variant ensuring control by dominant hosts while allowing combat transformations. The hierarchy created instant armies where one commander could coordinate hundreds of soldiers telepathically. Regeneradores demonstrated the most extreme plaga application. Multiple parasites implanted in...
Oh god, the fucking Regenerator. I hated dealing with him so much. He was so annoying. He's like the worst thing to deal with when it comes to Resident Evil is the fucking Regenerator.
To a single human body, produced the strongest healing factor in franchise history. They could regenerate lost limbs, destroyed organs, and severed heads in seconds. Their bodies became strangely elastic and nearly bulletproof. The only kill method was destroying all resident plagas simultaneously via infrared scope targeting, triggering a catastrophic chain reaction. No explanation exists for how 3 separate parasitic organisms coordinate to regenerate host tissue faster than any BOW before them. The amber added another layer of impossibility. Fossilized tree resin containing a unique dormant plaga specimen introduced in RE4 Remake's Separate Ways DLC. Even while suspended in solid amber for potentially centuries, it could influence nearby plagas and exhibited properties matching the dominant species. Luis Serra Navarro
I watched my ex play this one, and god was that thing terrifying.
discovered it, Sadler confiscated it, and Ada Wong's entire mission centered on retrieving it. The ability to transmit control signals through fossilized resin and solid rock violates every principle of biology and physics.
I gotta call it a night. Have a good rest of your stream. I'll catch you. Have a good one, Vuxlor. Thank you for being here.
Las Plagas proved that mind control was more valuable than mutation. Subsequent bioweapon development prioritized behavioral control over physical transformation. Tricell engineered Type 2 and Type 3 Plaga variants for RE5's Magini. The Nemesis project had attempted parasitic augmentation a decade earlier, but Las Plagas proved nature had already perfected the concept. Albert Wesker and Ada Wong both secured Plaga samples, ensuring the technology proliferated to black markets and rival corporations worldwide. But Las Plagas controlled individual. Wesker wanted to control evolution itself, and in the West African caverns where progenitor virus was first discovered, he engineered a virus designed to judge every human on Earth and determine who deserved to survive. Ouroboros. Ouroboros wasn't designed to create monsters or control minds. And after Albert Wesker spent 3 years developing it in the same West African caverns where progenitor was discovered, he built a virus that would judge every human being's genetic worthiness and force evolutionary selection on a global scale. Wesker killed Oswell Spencer in 2006 and learned the truth about Project Wesker, Spencer's eugenics program to create a superior human race. Wesker decided to complete Spencer's vision himself. Working with Tricell Corporation executive Excella Gione, he established laboratories in the Ndapaya Kingdom caverns, where the stairway to the sunflower produced progenitor virus decades.
I prefer watching you actually enjoy games and don't cuss and scream when you die.
Earlier. The problem was
you can do the mission the right way or you can do it the wrong way.
Progenitor's lethality. Compatible human population was vanishingly small, maybe 1 in millions. Wesker's solution was using T-virus antibodies extracted from Jill Valentine. She'd been infected during Raccoon City, developed antibodies, and Wesker kept her in cold sleep as a test subject after capturing her between RE3 and RE5. He repeatedly applied her antibodies to Ouroboros cultures, naturally selecting less lethal but still potent strains through thousands of failed attempts. The result was a binary judgment mechanism. Compatible hosts with rare advantageous genes achieved stable superhuman enhancement, enhanced speed, strength, regeneration, ceased aging, potential immortality. Incompatible hosts, the vast majority of humanity, were consumed by writhing black tentacles that devoured the body and absorbed surrounding organic material into growing biomass. Wesker planned atmospheric dispersal via missiles. Billions would die. A genetic elite would survive and inherit the Earth. But then you examine the mechanism. A virus cannot test genetic worthiness. Viruses interact with cellular machinery through receptor binding and gene expression. They don't evaluate abstract fitness or make binary decisions about evolutionary potential. The Ouroboros outcome, evolve or be consumed, would require impossibly complex decision trees encoded in viral RNA. No genetic program could assess a host's entire genome and determine worthiness within seconds of infection. RE5 also revealed the deep history connecting every franchise virus. The Ndapaya tribe built a massive underground civilization around Stairway to the Sunflowers. Tribal kings were selected by consuming the flowers. Survivors gained superhuman abilities, enhanced strength, intellect, near immortality. Legends described a single king reigning for centuries. The kingdom fell when mutant animals escaped containment. This proves progenitor created superhuman societies thousands of years before Umbrella existed, yet somehow had zero impact on recorded human history until 1966. Tricell used Las Plagas samples post-RE4 to engineer Type 2 and Type 3 variants. Type 2 plagas invaded orally, attached to the medulla oblongata, and matured in seconds. Type 3 plagas spliced dominant genes into subordinate plaga for enhanced physical abilities, but had 92% male-only compatibility and 0% compatibility in women and children. No biological explanation exists for sex-specific parasite rejection at those rates. Ouroboros aheri demonstrated the virus consuming incompatible hosts. Excella Gione was transformed
Her dying was a waste of beauty, because she is fucking hot.
After Wesker betrayed her. Her body dissolved into black tentacular masses that absorbed corpses in the ship's hold, growing into an enormous creature. When Wesker himself was destabilized by an overdose of PG67A/W serum, he deliberately infected himself with Ouroboros.
She has a nice rack.
Tentacles fused onto both arms and absorbed metallic debris into weapons. He retained consciousness and control because he was genetically compatible, unique among observed hosts. He lost his superhuman agility, but gained immense offensive power. Chris Redfield and Sheva Alomar killed him with 2 RPGs in volcanic lava. Jill Valentine's role raises the central contradiction. Her T-virus antibodies supposedly helped create Ouroboros by allowing natural selection of less lethal strains. But antibodies neutralize viruses. They bind to viral particles and mark them for immune destruction. Using antibodies as a template for engineering new viral capabilities has no real-world precedent. The mechanism is never explained beyond vague references to repeated exposure and strain selection. Ouroboros represented the apex of progenitor-derived viral ambition. Wesker tried to force evolution on a planetary scale. His death and Tricell's collapse proved that viral bioweapons had reached a philosophical dead end. They were too lethal, too uncontrollable, and too binary to serve practical military purposes. But Wesker tried to judge humanity with a single virus.
Evolution is basically a reaction of the body to external stimuli and environment. It doesn't mean it's always better, it just adapts to be better suited to where it exists. So kind of BS for a next human race. Yeah. It implies that they modify the antibodies to allow for that adaptation.
Carla Radames built something far more versatile, a virus that could turn one soldier into an army of entirely different creatures, adapting in real time to any battlefield condition, with mutations that appeared seconds after injury. The C-virus. The C-virus didn't just combine previous bioweapons, and after Carla Radames spent over a decade engineering it, she created something that could mutate in real time during combat, turning wounded soldiers into entirely new organisms seconds after taking damage. Carla developed the chrysalid virus under Derek C. Simmons, head of the family, a secret organization controlling Western governments. The engineering process spanned approximately 11 years. Step 1 used a base progenitor and T-virus variant around 2001. Step 2 incorporated T. veronica genes acquired from Manuela Hidalgo around 2002, creating the T02 strain that eliminated the 15-year cryogenic incubation requirement. Step 3 combined T02 with G-virus samples extracted from Sherry Birkin's blood, where trace weakened G-virus remained after the Devil vaccine. The 3 viruses formed the C-virus. Step 4 used blood from Jake Muller, Albert Wesker's son who inherited viral-resistant genetics, to create the enhanced C-virus that bypassed the chrysalid metamorphosis stage entirely. Only 3 enhanced samples were ever produced. The revolutionary capability was adaptive battlefield mutation. Hosts called Javo, Serbian for devil, retained human intelligence and weapon proficiency. But when injured, the wounded body part spontaneously mutated into combat adaptations within seconds. Arms became blades called Rukasarpi legs, transformed into insectoid appendages called Nogalet. Heads sprouted protective shields or moth-like wings. The mutations were named in Serbian and appeared instantly at injury sites. When cumulative damage exceeded thresholds, the host entered a chrysalid cocoon and underwent complete metamorphosis into an entirely new organism called a complete mutation species. But then you examine the biological mechanism. Real-time adaptive mutation in response to injury would require the virus to instantaneously detect damage location, select appropriate genetic programs from some impossible library, grow entirely new tissue types like wings or armor plating, integrate them with existing nervous and circulatory systems, and make everything functional in seconds. This is the most biologically impossible mechanism in the entire franchise. Derek Simmons exploited Carla for...
Well, it is video game logic. You don't need to make sense, you just need to make the game fun. I'm not really smart enough in biology and bioengineering to understand a lot of these. I understand enough, sadly.
Project Ada. After 12,234 failures, her genetic makeup proved compatible with chrysalid metamorphosis. She was transformed into a near-perfect clone of Ada Wong. When she realized her identity had been stolen, Carla founded Neo Umbrella and orchestrated bioterror attacks across Edonia in December 2012 and Lanxiang, China in June 2013. Simmons was forcibly infected with enhanced C virus during the Lanxiang incident. He retained consciousness and could shift between forms. His mutations included a centaur beast form, a Tyrannosaurus-like dinosaur form, with a circular mouth containing a giant eyeball inherited from G-virus traits, a scorpion form after absorbing zombie biomass, and a final fly form. He violated conservation of mass, unless explained by continuous absorption of external organic material. Ustenak...
Yeah, him going from human size to Tyrannus size makes no realistic physiological since it defies physics and thermodynamics. It defies the laws of reality.
Represented the C virus's pinnacle of controlled intelligence retention, a former prisoner who voluntarily submitted to infection on June 22, 2011. He was the 323rd candidate and the only survivor. Retained full intelligence, unique among test subjects. His right arm was lost in a lab accident and replaced with interchangeable cybernetic prosthetics, including chain guns, hydraulic claws, drills, shotguns, and flails. He generated bat-like scout creatures called Oko from a bioorganic system grafted to his back. Named from Serbo-Croatian for revolution, he served as Neo Umbrella's relentless pursuer, the spiritual successor to Nemesis. Chrysalid metamorphosis breaks every rule of embryonic development. Complete mutation species emerged from cocoons as fully formed organisms. Nepad appeared as armored gorilla brutes. Masets were flying crow-spider hybrids. Gnezdo was a swarm of insects forming humanoid shapes. The process required dissolving the entire host body and reforming as something completely different in minutes. No genetic program could encode instructions for running a complete embryonic development cycle at that speed. And the C virus created both mindless zombies via gas dispersal and intelligent Javo via injection using the same pathogen. Two completely different mechanisms triggered solely by delivery method. A gaseous C virus destroyed higher brain function, like T virus. Injected C virus preserved intelligence and enabled adaptive mutations. No explanation exists for how one virus produces opposite neurological outcomes, based purely on administration route. The C virus represented the culmination of Umbrella lineage viral engineering. It combined T. veronica's controlled intelligence, G virus's adaptive mutation, and T virus's mass infection capability into one pathogen. Its extreme versatility also revealed the fundamental limits. Too unstable, too unpredictable, too easily weaponized by rogue actors like Carla. Neo Umbrella's attacks proved bioweapon proliferation had exceeded any organization's control capacity. But every bioweapon so far required laboratories, viral engineering, and genetic manipulation. In a Louisiana bayou, a 10-year-old girl carried something that didn't need labs or viruses. It just needed to touch you, absorb your cells, and replace them with something that looked exactly like you but wasn't. The mold. The mold wasn't a virus or a parasite. And after Eveline infected the Baker family in October 2014, she proved that a fungal organism could do everything viruses did while adding one capability no bioweapon had ever achieved, storing human consciousness indefinitely. The mold is a hyper-evolved fungus, originating from an Eastern European mountain range, specifically a massive supercolony called the Megamycete. The Connections, a criminal syndicate, obtained samples in the 1990s with assistance from Wesker's HCF organization. They engineered E-type bioweapons using mutamycete genomes introduced into pre-stage 4 human embryos. The genome bonded only with female embryos. All male subjects died. Series A through C were unviable. D-Series produced 8 prototypes named Dana, Dahlia, Darlene, Dorothy, Dolores, Diana, Daniela, and Doris. All failed through death, homicide, or poor performance. A-001, Eveline was the first stable subject, created in 1999 using mold from Mother Miranda, plus DNA from Miranda's deceased daughter Eva. Eveline's control mechanism used pheromone-based quorum sensing. She secreted mold through vomiting or skin contact, broadcasting commands through mold deposits using chemical signals similar to bacterial autoinducer molecules. 3-phase infection, initial mold propagation using host nutrients, progressive cellular takeover, and full mental control via psychic link. The tanker SS Annabelle wrecked in a Louisiana hurricane on October 5, 2014. Jack Baker rescued Eveline and Mia Winters from the bayou on October 10th. The Baker family was infected over approximately 2 weeks. But then you examine what the mold actually replaced. Jack Baker's cells were substituted with fungal imitations that granted extraordinary regeneration. He survived dismemberment, gunshots, and immolation. His tissue wasn't mutated. It was replaced entirely by fungus-mimicking human cells. The molded weren't reanimated corpses. They were mobile colonies of mold constructed from biomass. Corpses fed to the mold provided fuel to build filaments. Enough mold in an area could form a molded without any body at all. Marguerite Baker gained the ability to produce and control mutant insects hatched from mold. Her mutated form featured elongated spindly...
This was disgusting. I wonder if it utilized the idea of an activated pineal gland. It physically becomes a toy to be molded and manipulated. So wouldn't she be taken out by a foot fungus
The
powder?
limbs, an insect hive within her lower torso, and behavior resembling an insect queen. The insects were secondarily infected, because they weren't directly infected by Eveline. She couldn't control them directly, proving the hierarchical control had limitations. Lucas Baker was freed from Eveline's control by the connections using a serum, in exchange for spying. He was a psychopath before infection. He trapped a childhood bully in the attic and left him to starve. He maintained the pretense of being controlled while building elaborate death traps and eventually betraying the connections entirely. Here's what breaks every biological rule. Psychic control via fungus has no mechanism. Real fungi use basic chemical signaling for colony coordination. The mold's ability to induce specific hallucinations, control complex behavior, and maintain telepathic links across miles is science fiction. No fungal network could produce human-level directed psychic communication or selective memory manipulation, and consciousness transfer is functionally supernatural. No biological mechanism exists for storing human consciousness, memories, personality, and identity in fungal biomass. Yet the mold preserved Jack Baker's sanity within the hive mind. He appeared to Ethan Winters in a vision, explaining the family were innocent victims. The implication is clear. The mold doesn't just control minds, it absorbs them and keeps them alive inside itself. The revelation from RE Village makes it worse. Ethan Winters was killed by Jack Baker at the start of RE7. The mold reconstituted his entire body from fungal matter while preserving his consciousness, identity, relationships, and ability to father a biological child. Ethan was dead. The person who rescued Mia, defeated Evelyn, and saved his daughter was a walking colony of fungus that believed it was human. The mold rendered every viral bioweapon obsolete. It could mutate, regenerate, control minds, and fabricate biomass from nothing, and it stored souls. Every subsequent bioweapon development couldn't compete with an organism that made death optional. But Eveline was a weapon built from the mold. The mold itself came from something far older beneath an Eastern European village, and the woman who discovered it in 1919 had been using it to play God for over a century. The megamycete. The megamycete wasn't just the source of the mold, and after Mother Miranda discovered it beneath an Eastern European village in 1919, she spent over a century proving that every bioweapon in Resident Evil's history traced back to a fungal superorganism that stores human souls. Miranda found the megamycete after her daughter Eva died from the Spanish flu pandemic. It was an enormous ancient fungal colony shaped roughly like a human fetus, buried deep beneath the mountain village, with countless mold tendrils extending through rock and soil. Any organism making physical contact had its genetic code and consciousness assimilated. The megamycete functioned as a massive biological consciousness database containing thousands of human minds accumulated over millennia. In the early 1950s, Miranda mentored a young British medical student named Oswell E. Spencer. His fascination with the megamycete's regenerative and psychoactive properties directly inspired the founding of Umbrella Corporation. This means Mother Miranda is indirectly responsible for every T-virus zombie, every G-virus mutation, every bioweapon event in the entire franchise. Miranda's primary weapon was the Cadu, Romanian for gift, a parasitic nematode altered by the mold, easier to administer than raw mold infection. Cadu implantation produced wildly divergent mutations based on host compatibility. The same parasite created vampiric blood drinking in Lady Dimitrescu, electromagnetic manipulation in Carl Heisenberg, aquatic transformation in Salvatore Moreau, and psychic hallucination abilities in Donna Beneviento. 4 hosts, 1 parasite, completely different results. But then you examine Lady Dimitrescu's daughters. They weren't human. Miranda implanted Cadu into 3 female corpses. The Cadu produced fly-like organisms that consumed the corpse's flesh, assimilated their DNA, and merged to mimic human shapes. Bella, Daniela, and Cassandra were insect swarms that could dissolve and reform at will. They had memories, personalities, and familial bonds, despite being fungal constructs piloting swarms of flies wearing human faces.
The word gift in German, and it means poison.
Heisenberg's electromagnetic abilities have 0 biological basis. The Cadu granted him ferrokinetic powers that let him manipulate metal objects at range and build an army of cyborg corpse hybrids called soldats. Types included Eins with 1 drill arm, Zwei with 2 drill arms, jet variants with jetpacks, Panzer models with heavy armor, and Sturm units with propeller chainsaw heads. The Holler version, 1.01, had cranial headgear to stimulate brainwaves for labor tasks, but had 0 combat capability. During testing, A single lichen killed and devoured one in 3 minutes. The four lords demonstrated the Cadou's fundamental impossibility. One parasite produces completely different supernatural abilities in different hosts. Real parasites produce predictable, not wildly divergent, effects. Compatibility is invoked constantly, but no mechanism is provided. How does a nematode generate electromagnetic fields in one person and psychic pollen in another? RE4 remakes separate ways. DLC connected Las Plagas to this web. The amber, fossilized tree resin containing a unique ancient plaga specimen, became Ada Wong's primary objective. Even while dormant in amber, it could influence nearby plagas. Mother Miranda's insignia appeared in the Spanish village, suggesting her influence extended to Las Plagas research decades before RE4. Luis Serra Navarro discovered the amber. Sadler confiscated it. In the DLC's ending, Ada refused to deliver it to Wesker after learning his plan would cost billions of lives. Wesker instead collected Krauser's corpse for dominant plaga extraction, declaring the age of man will soon end. Rose Winters represents something entirely new. Born to two mold-infected parents, Ethan and Mia, she possesses innate mold powers. In the Shadows of Rose DLC, set in 2037, 16-year-old Rose enters a Megamycete Fragment's consciousness realm. She encounters remnants of Miranda and Eveline, preserved as consciousnesses. She has supernatural mold control and freezing calcification abilities. Rose is proof that mold infection creates heritable genetic traits. Here's the central contradiction. How did Ethan, a mold construct with no living cells, father a biological child? How does fungus produce heritable genetics? Rose's existence implies the mold doesn't just mimic life, it creates it. And if the Megamycete stores consciousness indefinitely, then
Rose is a biological impossibility and she should not exist.
death isn't final in the Resident Evil universe anymore. Every victim absorbed by the mold still exists inside the network. Miranda's century of research produced only the Cadou and Four Lords, but Spencer's Umbrella lineage generated T-Virus, G-Virus, T-Veronica, and Ouroboros within 40 years using only progenitor. If Miranda had access to
It bugs me how he pronounces Ouroboros as Ouroboros. It's Ouroboros.
the Megamycete since 1919, why did she need the connections in the 1990s to make progress? The timeline creates a paradox where the student surpassed the teacher using inferior source material. The Megamycete recontextualized the entire franchise. It's the "you are organism." Miranda is the researcher. Spencer was her student. Every zombie, every mutation, every parasite traces its lineage to Miranda's 1919 discovery. The Cadou's variable mutations represent the logical endpoint of bioweapon unpredictability, and Rose Winters, as a natural-born mold hybrid, represents an evolutionary successor to humanity, born from the franchise's accumulated biological chaos. Resident Evil 9 releases February 27, 2026. The new bioweapon Elpis connects to the Raccoon City sterilization strategy. Zombies retain human memories. The franchise appears poised to circle back to its viral origins while incorporating consciousness preservation capabilities pioneered by the mold. The evolution continues. If you enjoyed breaking down the biological evolution of Resident Evil's monsters, subscribe for more deep dives into gaming lore that actually makes sense of the chaos.
Arrival.
Resident Evil's monsters didn't
If a woman gets pregnant from fungus, that would be called a fungal infection? Yeah, she has a fungal parasite. If any sort of zombie-like thing were to happen in real life, the more probable one would be the zombie fungus infection you find in insects. But that zombie fungal infection cannot exist within humans because of our body heat. We run too hot for that fungal infection to even survive in us. So unless the cordyceps decides to evolve in some way, it is physically impossible for cordyceps to infect humans, simply for the fact that we run too hot. Well, that is the end of this video. I hope you all enjoyed it. If you did, please make sure to give a like and subscribe. I post videos 3 to 5 days a week. here. I also post videos over on my other channel for gaming as well, so please make sure to give that a look-see, see if you enjoy that as well. I also stream anywhere from 3 to 5 days a week as well. Links to all my social medias will be on my YouTube page. And with that being said, I hope you all have a wonderful rest of your day, and I will see you all in the next video. Bye-bye.